Hello all, Lieutenant Dan here. I'm going to be briefly introducing myself to you guys today. If you're a long-time subscriber, you probably already know me. I've been working with Captain Logan on the channel here for years now. It's been a while. And if not, then you're probably a new subscriber, or you subscribe just for Superhero Rewind or something like that. In any case, if you aren't aware of me, then it's very nice to meet you. And I'm just going to be going through 6 questions here that the rest of the Geekvolution team asked me, and I hope you guys enjoy it. So, without further ado, let's begin with the Curious Low. And she wants to know if there's a classic movie I've always wanted to see but never have, and if so, why haven't I? Well, I've been thinking a lot about Star Wars in terms of geeky stuff lately, as you can see. And I've just been really impressed with everything that Disney's done with them, and it's made me kind of wanted to go back to the early influences George Lucas had when he was making those movies, at least working on them. And the trail always leads to the Kurosawa series of samurai films that were made, I guess, in the mid to late 50s, and then going all the way up. I think the last one was made in the mid 80s. But specifically Seven Samurai, if I had to pick one of them, because I've heard that's the most influential, revered, homaged one. And I do like Japanese medieval history somewhat. I don't know a whole lot about it, to be honest with you, but I've always just thought ninjas and samurai were really cool. So that's kind of the movie that's been on my mind at the moment that I really want to see. That's sort of one of those classic, you have to see them pieces of cinema. The second question here is from the Real Manos, and he wants to know if there was anything about Spider-Man I would change if it were up to me. Well, the thing that I've always thought was wrong with Spider-Man, and there's not a lot. I love the character a lot. And for those of you who don't know, Spider-Man's my favorite superhero character ever. I love Spider-Man. Daredevil's a very, very close second, but I do love Spider-Man the most. And the problem with that character is that it's a coming-of-age story, and a story like that demands an ending. It's not like the other superhero characters where, you know, you take a character like Thor or the Hulk, you're going to put these characters through trials and tribulations, and they're going to change somewhat, but they're adults when you first meet them. So they're kind of, at least their identity is intact as people when you first meet them. Spider-Man isn't the same way. It's a story about someone finding themselves, and that sort of story demands that at some point they find themselves. And the problem with the character, ever since about the late 1980s, maybe into the 90s too, because that's when they had him, have a kid with Mary Jane and stuff. But at least the story stopped being good in the late 80s, early 90s. And the problem was that Marvel thought Peter Parker was getting too old, which is the opposite of the problem that I identify, because I want to see Peter Parker get old, because that's what the character necessitates. Like, that story needs to end at some point. We need to have Peter Parker discover himself, reach self-actualization. It doesn't have to be a happy ending. Like, you can kill Mary Jane if you want to, and make it really tragic. I don't know. But the fact that he was getting married and having children, like, that's a logical place to go with the character, because that's where the story's always been heading. Stan Lee, even when he was on that book, he aged the character. He graduated from high school, he graduated from college. So that's kind of what you need to do with the character. But the problem is that he is a character that exists within an ongoing superhero comic book medium, where those series aren't allowed to end because they're the bread and butter sales of the company. And history has shown us, I suppose, that when you replace these characters for a long period of time and it seems like they're never going to come back, people will get really angry, sales drop, all those sorts of things. They're never going to take Peter Parker out of that role for a substantial amount of time, and they can't end it because they need to sell books. So they just kind of keep spinning their wheels and keeping Peter Parker at this point perpetually in the age of like early to mid 20s, where he's this kind of single guy. He date someone for an extended period of time every once in a while. He never really matures into full adulthood, and that gets kind of boring because it's just the same thing over and over again. I want to see this character go through challenges, overcome them, and grow as a person, and that's not what he's allowed to do anymore. And I think they reached that problem by aging him before, and now, there's not really any way to rectify the problem. That's not a problem in other adaptations of the character, like in the movies and the television shows like Spectacular and stuff like that, because they can end the story if they want to. But specifically in the comic books, that's what I see as the big problem with him. Eric wants to know, who is the worst long-running Spider-Man artist? Well, I wish I could give a more obscure and impressive answer. But the one that comes to mind off the top of my head is Humberto Ramos, because he's sort of the antithesis of what I personally like in my superhero comic book art. My favorite artists are people like John Romita, John Byrne, Gene Colan, people in that sort of mold where and Gil Kane too, I like Gil Kane a lot, that kind of classic, bombastic superhero kind of look. Ditko is a totally different animal. I love his art for completely different reasons than those people, but that's kind of my ideal look for a superhero comic book. I'm a little bit old school in that regard. And Humberto Ramos is kind of like the exact opposite of that. Everyone looks really cartoony. Their facial expressions never convey the emotion that the scene that they're existing in wants to convey, I find. Everyone looks like they have like broken limbs and stuff. I don't know. I just really don't like his art, and in my opinion, he's probably the artist I can think of that I dislike the most that's drawn Spider-Man for an extended period of time. Next is Rasco. He wants to know, what historical event would I like to go back in time and see firsthand? Well, if I could time travel, ideally what I'd like to do is just kind of go back and exist in a society for an extended period of time. Like stay in, ancient Egypt, ancient Rome, ancient Athens for like a couple months. Just kind of experience the society, see what it's like. But if I had to pick one specific event, maybe I've been studying early American history a lot lately because I'm taking a class on early American political thought and history for my major at school, and we've been reading a lot about the Constitutional Convention, and I think that would be the one event that I like to witness firsthand, just to see how the arguments that were made at the time actually contrast with Madison's perspective on what was being said, because he's the guy that has the most comprehensive notes that that have survived, that we can go back and read. And are really interesting, and just getting to meet a lot of the people that founded America. They were all really smart people, brilliant men, and they're so revered today. I'd like to just sort of see what their personalities were like. It'd be really interesting. Next one's from Captain Logan, and he wants to know, if I could own any screen use prop from any movie, what would it be? Maybe this is cheating, but I've always thought it would be really cool to own a armor set from one of the Star Wars movies and have it in your house, like one of like knight armor that fancy people keep in their house. Just like have it in a corner and just have it there on display looking cool. I'd probably choose Boba Fett, if not Darth Vader. Those are my two favorite Star Wars characters and two of my favorite characters from cinema, so I'd probably go with a full set of Boba Fett armor. And if that's cheating, choosing a whole suit of armor, I'd take the helmet from Boba Fett. That would probably be what I'd choose. Next question is from Steve. And he wants to know why I decided to study political science at school. Well, when I was a kid, I was always interested in reading political stories and history, stories about kings and queens. I was raised Catholic, so we read a lot of stories in the Bible about, King David and the early kingdoms of Israel and stuff like that. So I was always interested in political intrigue and things like that. And I just kind of wanted to know more about political theory, why regimes are structured the way they are, how the American political system actually functions, those sorts of things. Because I feel like civics aren't taught to the degree that they should be in American public schools, and I wanted to know more. I suppose I could have sought that information out on my own, but I figured if I went to school for something that I was interested in, it wouldn't feel like work. I'd be able to keep my grades up, and I'm trying to go to law school, so if you can study whatever you want when you want to go to law school. You just have to have high grades and get a good score on the entrance exam. So that was the path I ended up choosing, and I think it's worked out pretty well so far. All right, so that's all the questions. I hope you guys enjoyed the video, and I look forward to interacting with you guys in the comments on all the upcoming videos I and everyone else puts out. All right, thanks guys. See you later.